Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Tatreez 101. I'm Ruba, and in this series of videos, we are talking about Palestinian embroidery or Tatreez. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos, please go back and watch them when you have time so you can catch up with everything we learned so far. In today's video, we will be talking about threads used in Tatreez. So, let's get to it. As you can see, there are so many threads on the screen, but don't worry, it's not much to unpack. Now, in the past, women used silk or cotton threads that were made and dyed locally or imported from neighboring countries like Syria and Egypt. This is no longer the case these days, and the threads we will be talking about today in this video are what is currently used in Tatreez. So, the most commonly used threads in Tatreez these days are the pearl cotton threads, which you see over here. And like I said earlier, this wasn't always the case, but I think it was around 1920 when Palestine was under the British mandate that the DMC threads were introduced and they became popular for many reasons. One of them is that DMC threads were available in so many colors, something that the natural dyes couldn't produce at the time. But also, it was because of all these cruel policies and laws that the British government would place on these local weavers and dyers that would restrict how they conduct their business, and sometimes it would force them to close their businesses or force the owner himself out of his land or his village because they want to take control over the area. And so when these people are forced to move from their villages, they would have to close their businesses or to relocate it into their new place, and a lot of people would struggle to reopen and relocate their businesses. And so all of these unfair policies resulted in the DMC threads, which was imported from Europe, to become the one that are most popular in the market and easily available. But also buying DMC threads became cheaper than buying local threads, and so it kind of slowly and over time it killed local businesses and became the threads that are mostly used in Palestinian embroidery. We also have the stranded cotton threads or floss, but these are not used as much in Palestine. We use them for like frames and like household items, but we don't use them much for thobes or dresses. And these are actually more popular here in the West than in Palestine. You can buy them here from any local craft or embroidery shop, while the pearl cotton tend to be harder to buy here, and most of the time we usually get them online. But in Palestine you can actually find the pearl cotton at any craft or embroidery shop. Lastly are these silk or satin threads, or these metallic kind of twisted cords or threads that we call qasab, but qasab usually is used for certain type of embroidery or stitches like the couching stitch. So these are kind of the threads that we use in Tatreez in general. Now let's take a closer look at each one of them and see how we can stitch with it. The first one are these stranded cotton threads, or floss number 25. These, as you can see, come in different colors. Some are solid colors, or variegated like this, which comes in one color and shades of the same color, or like this, which has multiple colors mixed together. All of these are 100% cotton. We also have floss that are metallic, but they are not made from cotton. Each of these threads will have some information, so here it says DMC number 25. It tells you how much thread you have in this floss. So we have 8.7 yards or 8 meter, and down here we have a number, and this number is the color code or the color number, and each color has its own color code. So this color is 729, this color is 601, and this one is 352, and so on. So each one of them has its own unique color number, so you can easily label and order them. Now the reason why it's called stranded cotton threads is because each thread consists of 6 strands, and depends on your project and the fabric you want to use and how much coverage you want, you might not use all these strands. So for example, if I am using Aida fabric count 14, I might use 2 strands. If I am using Aida count 11, I might use 3 or 4 strands depending on how much coverage I want. I will insert a picture of stitches done by different amount of strands just to give you an idea about what coverage means, and hopefully it helps you decide how many strands you need for your project. Alright, now let's see how we stitch with it. First, I pull my thread from this side, which is the bottom side, and I cut the length I want. Then I separate my strands. Let's say that I want 3 strands. I just slowly separate them like so. Then I thread my needle and start stitching. Now if I want to use the loop method of securing my thread, then I will pull one thread like so, fold it in half, thread it from the loop area, and then start stitching. And don't worry, I will be making videos showing you different methods of securing your starting threads later. Let's move on to the next category, which is the pearl cotton threads. Now the pearl cotton threads comes in different sizes, which is listed on their packaging. So we have size 3, 5, 8, and 12. 3 being the thickest thread between all of them, then 5, then 8, and then the finest one or the thinnest is number 12. The one we use the most is number 8, and as you can see, they come in either floss or balls. Also, they come in different colors as well. Some are solid, some variegated with one color and its shades, or multiple colors mixed together. All of these are 100% cotton, and like we said earlier, each color has its own specific number or code. So this is 600, this is 301, and so on. To stitch with this one is actually simple. For this one, you use the twisted thread as it is. You don't separate it. You just cut the length that you want and start stitching. Now try here not to cut your thread longer than 18 or 19 inches, because if your thread is too long, then it will start fraying and breaking, and this will make your stitches look untidy and uneven. So if it's shorter than this, it's okay, but try not to make it super long. You can also use your arm to measure, so from your hand all the way to your elbow, which will be a number around that range of inches. Now, if you cut your thread longer than this, say 20 or 22 inches, it is not a crime. Just be aware that your thread might fray. And don't worry, I will be showing you in a separate video how to do these cross stitches in details. The last category of threads are these satin, silk, or metallic cords or threads, and like I said earlier, we use these for a specific type of embroidery or stitches, and the way we are using these really depends on the stitch we are using it for, the look we are going for in our design, and the way we want to use them. So let me show you an example of what I mean. So this is how we use these metallic cords or threads. As you can see, the type of thread we are using, how thick or thin it is, the colors we are using, and the way we arrange these threads, it all kind of depends on the stitch itself, on the design and the look we are going for. But simply speaking, we use these metallic cords to kind of trace our design, and then we use another thread to hold in place. This other thread as well could be either metallic or some other type of thread. It could be the same color or different color. It could be same thickness or thinner or thicker. It really all depends on the design that I'm going for. Alright, let's talk about brands. Now I know in this video I showed you my threads, which are mostly DMC threads, but this is not in any way me endorsing them or saying that they are the only threads out there. It just happened that I grew up using them because they were the main thread that was used in Palestine at the time, and DMC is kind of a major company in the embroidery world. Their threads tend to be good quality and they are available in different colors, easy to buy and affordable, so naturally a lot of people would use them. But honestly, given their recent stand on Palestine, or lack of it actually, I've been trying to find some alternatives for these type of threads, and I have to say it is easier to find replacements for the stranded cut floss than the pearl cotton one. So for stranded cotton, so far I tried Cosmo and Sullivan, which you can buy online. It is not super easy to get, but you can still buy them and they are good quality. There are also artists or local businesses that make stranded cotton threads and dye them. The only issue with that is that because it's hand dyed, the color can vary. Also, sometimes they discontinue these colors, and so if you are working on a smaller project, it should be fine, but if you are working on a big project, that can become tricky to use and deal with. I personally don't mind the variation in color because it seems natural, and I also like all the creativity of the color mixing that comes with these threads. So for my small projects, I sometimes use or experiment with these threads. So just be aware of that when you are investing in these type of threads. As for the pearl cotton threads, like I said earlier, they are a little harder to find a replacement for. So far I haven't been lucky enough to find one. I have tried a few years ago some threads that were made in China, but they were really bad. They would break so easily. The colors bleed when you wash them, so it wasn't good at all. That doesn't mean that all threads that are made in China are bad. It's just that particular one was. And I also tried this, which I'm not 100% sure where it's from, but the seller said they are Turkish threads. The quality on these are better than the one that were made in China. However, it's not 100% there for me. The thread still feels a little weaker and can break easily, so I personally didn't like them as much. So I am still looking for a replacement for these. So if you have any suggestions or recommendations, please leave them in the comments down below or DM me if you want. I'm more than happy to try new threads. So please, if you have good recommendations, send them my way. Alright, moving on to the last thing we will be talking about today. What are some of the qualities that we look for when we go to buy our threads? Well, first of all, you don't want a thread that break or fray so easily. You don't want it to tangle easily. You don't want the colors to fade over time or to bleed when you wash them. And lastly, you want the colors to be easy to find and widely available. Because the last thing you want is to start a project and then run out of your thread and go to buy it only to realize that you cannot get it anymore or it is discontinued, and so you are stuck with a project that you cannot finish. So these are some of the qualities that I look for when I go buy my Tatreez threads. And that takes us to the end of this video. So far, we learned about what Tatreez is, what fabric we need, needles, and threads. Next time, we will be talking about patterns. Before you go, please make sure to share, like, and subscribe to this channel. And I will see you next week, inshallah. Bye.